CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Today, we are going to get a grip. We're joined by Tracy Widmeyer. We're going to learn about how and why he founded Gripp. You'll find it at www.gripp, that's with two P's, GRIPP.AG, and it is purpose-built to breathe connectivity into your equipment and operations without the cost of expensive hardware sensors. Best of all, it is dead simple to use. This is a journey worth watching, so let's get the story right now. Tracy, welcome to CMMS Radio.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Greg. I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, me too. And thanks for the badass Gripp hat. I really like it, and I just wanted to make sure I wear that during our episode.
I love it, man.
Yeah, so pretty simple. I mean, to start off, how did this all kind of start? Because you're a true entrepreneur. You've had successful exits, but kind of in your heart and in your soul, you're really connected to who you serve and why you serve them with the Gripp technology. So can you give us a little bit of a backstory and, kind of lead us up into Gripp and why now?
Yeah, definitely. So, I've been an entrepreneur most of my career. I've started a couple of companies. I'd started one in 2008, was there for 10 or 12 years, raised a ton of capital, went through all the potholes you can imagine, just sort of making that company, survive and be successful. I'd eventually left after 12 years there, but went into some private equity work. And one of the interesting things that I was trying to do was work with a waste management software company, an IoT sensor. So we basically measure the hydraulic pressure on a ram of a 40-yard, trash bin for Home Depot, and then be able to call out to waste management and tell them when to empty it. Before they were emptying it a couple times a week, whether it was full or not. But it was the first time in my career where I could, take a laptop and a crescent wrench, put my boots on, walk to the customer site. And it was so interesting for me because I grew up on a farm. We raised chickens, row crops. My grandpa had an adjoining dairy. And so I've been around agriculture and equipment my whole life. The house behind me, I've built with my own hands over, that's why it's not done after 5 or 6 years. I own backhoes, dump trucks, tractors, skid loaders, telehandlers, you name it. And so I'm a very hands in the dirt guy. And, as I grew up as a software engineer, I'm like, God, it exists where I can use technology, but also, get my hands in the dirt. And it was just so enjoyable. So that company exited. And when I was looking for, what's next, I was like, I want to do this again in a place where I can actually, take a big chunk out of something meaningful for the end users. And as I was looking around, I got connected to Purdue University. Purdue tries to spin out ideas in agriculture that are underserved. It's ag tech and agriculture is oftentimes overlooked. And so one way or the other, I got connected with them. They were spinning this idea for Gripp out, which the mandate at that point was, agriculture maintenance is underserved. So very broad topic. They bring in entrepreneurs like myself to say, hey, can you take this from zero to wherever and form a company, build a team, find product market fit, and go through that process. And so that's how I landed at Gripp and just loving every minute of it.
Yeah, the best thing about it for me, and we talked before, not doing an episode, but just getting acquainted, and I'm really big on this concept of specificity around who's being served, why, what's the gap, and it's not out there to be everything to everyone. And, a lot of technology can end up on that path. We understand that. And sometimes that's great. A lot of times it's not. But with what you're doing, there's a really, really strong connection to the roots of why this, no pun intended on roots, because it's agriculture, right? But the roots of why this exists and the challenges we see if we're on a large, property on a farm, and we've got this heavy equipment, these things that we absolutely rely on when it comes to, for us other folks that aren't actually in farming and agriculture, we rely on this to get all these different things that we consume. And I'm curious how this technology thus far has resonated with that group, because those are your people. And I think that's probably one of the strongest things about what you've done is you've created something for them, for yourself, and it makes total sense. Can you tell us a little bit about that, how they've received it and what it's really doing for them?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that what it comes down to, just they feel like somebody's been listening to them. In the past, it's because you talk to somebody who's not in ag, they're like, this is solved 10 years ago or 20 years, like tracking equipment maintenance, like that's been done for a while. The nuance on agriculture is when you have an operator who's running a tractor or a combine or a packing line, they're also typically maintaining the equipment, they're doing the inspections. They've got 10 different jobs. And so outside of ag, it's very easy to hire a full-time person who is their only job is to get into the software, understand the complexities. They sit in a cube. They can get deep and look at all the features and use the dashboard and stuff like that. In ag, that there's no time for that. And so, one of the things that we first realize is, when you're on a farm, you've got, folks that are seasonal, they're coming and going. They may not work for your operation full time. They're hauling grain. Maybe they're a shared resource between a couple of farms. And so it becomes very important for you to figure out, with the hands in the dirt, with that operator base, what are the pain points day to day? And we heard things like, we don't carry pens or keyboards, so I can't use this complex software, but I have a mobile phone. So can we use a mobile phone? Then it's basically, we have trouble tracking everything that we own that makes us successful. It's not just the stuff on tires. It's fixed equipment. It's irrigation systems. It's facilities. It's all sorts of stuff. Cherry disease tracking in some cases. And so we knew at that point we have to have something that is agnostic to what it is. It can track anything, because you could easily go into a center pivot system or a John Deere tractor, a case, and you'd be forced to use a different app for every different brand. And, for farming, it's just not going to happen. It doesn't happen really in any industry. And so, and then the farmer said, look, I want access to information on the fly. Like, I don't want to go back to the truck, grab the book. I don't want to go to the office, look at the spreadsheet, or fill the spreadsheet out at 9 o'clock at night to try to remember what kind of conversations I had. And so we looked at the landscape of all those pain points and said, I think we can put all that stuff together in one place and leverage what they're using today, which are things like text, WhatsApp, a spreadsheet, or a paper form. I was like, well, paper forms, the analog is an electronic form. Everybody pretty much knows how to fill out a survey, in their browser. Everybody knows how to chat and take a picture. Even the old guys are sending their kids pictures of their grandkids. So they know how to take a picture and chat. So if we can leverage the input mechanisms that people are already using, we probably don't have to train them very much, and it becomes something that's just part of how they do business. And so that's the thing that we've enabled these farms to do, is very quickly, through a 15 to 30 minute setup process, they're immediately able to track information on their farm, invite their team, and use the same mechanisms that they're used to, just now centralized and accessible. And it's just been great to see these, we call it the culture of care, develop on some of these farms. You're getting people recognizing things that they would have just passed up before because they didn't feel like they had a voice.
Yeah, that's the good stuff. And maybe it sounds a little kumbaya. I use that word all the time when I'm on the podcast, because it's like, oh, everything's good, but it really is. I mean, it's when you talk about how people engage with technology, a lot of times it's limited because it's telling you, the potential user, I'm going to steal your time. I'm going to distract you. I'm going to make you learn something new right here, right now, while you're busy trying to handle a problem or trying to understand, okay, how much more time do I have with this piece of equipment before so-and-so needs it to bring it to the other side of the property and do his work or her work. So that's all good stuff. And I like how it's not just limited to the farming equipment and the heavy equipment that moves on wheels, but it's the other systems, maybe even conveyor systems and things I wouldn't even know how to describe. I mean, I've been on a few farms, but I can't get over how excited I am about the specificity and that it's so purpose built. And everybody says that, but that's not always. A lot of times that's a bunch of marketing bullshit, and this is not. So that's why I'm kind of amped up about it and excited about it. So I've seen a video, a really nice video that shows a demonstration on how it works as it relates to a piece of equipment. And I'm wondering if you could describe it to us. We're not going to show it on the episode because people can go check it out on the website, but can you describe to us that process that we saw in the video with the application and the use of the mobile phone?
Yep. Yeah. So the basic starting point is, we take a QR code. We've got different forms of, big stickers, small stickers, PVC cards that you can zip tie to something, magnets, you name it. Basically, that becomes the bridge from a physical thing into this digital profile that you build over time. So put a QR code on, scan it with the mobile app, give the asset a name, sometimes take a hero picture, sometimes not, and then it's immediately available. One of the things we learned on farms is like we thought, well, they're going to have a bunch of history, and we're going to have to now import that history. And we've seen only one farm have history, and it's literally they take a picture of the paper book that they have. Right there isn't history from other software. They're not using other software. History's in their mind, their memories, which is spotty at best. And so we said, let's get this asset into the system as quickly as possible. And then from that point on, when you scan that QR code, you get a lot of accessibility that looks like texting or WhatsApp. So that's the first thing. I want to report something that I see a squeaky seal, a leaky bearing. There's one of the dairies in Indiana had seen some corrugated metal that was hooking people's shirts. And as they walked by, I was like, well, we just need to fix that. And so you pull your phone out, you scan the code, you take a picture, and then you put your phone away and go on your job. Now, what happens is that issue that you logged can get routed to the person who could actually do something about it. And sometimes it's the operator themselves. They just don't have time to do it now. They're going to do it in a week or after the season. Or you might get alerts and reminders to say, look, you've just passed the 5,000-mile service interval for this truck. Change the oil, change the fuel filter, hydraulics, whatever it is. And so very simple to log information, very simple to look up information as soon as you scan. So manuals, parts lists, calibration videos, those types of things that, if you think about being in front of a piece of equipment, when something's going wrong, you want that information right in front of you. What you typically have to do is there might be a QR code. It's the same QR code for every piece of equipment. It takes you to their website. You got to search. You find a PDF manual. It's small print. You're on your phone. You're like, what do and I'm going to go to YouTube. Now you're all over the place. Frustration abounds. And so we try to bring some sense to that on the accessibility part. And then the electronic form stuff that I had mentioned before, there's a lot of regulatory pressure, DOT audits, if they're reporting for fuel. Be surprised how much of that stuff is done on paper these days. So we just take the questions of that paper form that the auditor requires and put that into Gripp so that you scan the code, you click a link or a button to take you to that form and you fill it out. So now the operators aren't guessing the type of information they have to collect. So a little more structure than just a general text message issue you're reporting, but that information is easily accessible and reportable to the agencies or the DOT or whoever you have to report to. So saving time, ease of use, that sort of stuff. So that process, we've done operations where we tag 200 pieces of equipment in half a day, and by the afternoon, their team is using it, which is unheard of. You go to some of these more complex, it's like, we're going to take 6 to 9 months. We're going to gather all the pristine information. We're going to customize, we've said, no, that's just not the path there. It doesn't work in ag.
Well, and I would say, like, without you even having said that, I'd say, in this industry, people work. They want to work. They don't want to stop. They're not literally not concerned about, hey, how can I get a rest? How can I get a break? Because they're not wired that way. They're like, I'm working for my break time. I'm working for dinner time. And it's just the way it is. It's not, they don't want things to get in the way of getting shit done. And I think that's really important. So that concept of being dead simple really lands well with this particular group of users. Even some of the ones that are advanced businessmen that like to leverage technology, they know they can't put that on their people because they're going to be like, no, I'm not doing this, man. I got stuff to do.
They plead. We get customers pleading with us to keep it simple, because they know if it's not simple, their folks aren't going to do it. And then they still have to babysit, and which is what we're trying to solve for them is don't babysit your operation. Make the operators the eyes and ears because you're already paying them to use your stuff every day.
Yeah. Does it also work with, let's say that I have a farm and all these different pieces of equipment, and I happen to work with an outside group that comes to do either repairs or perform maintenance tasks on my different pieces of equipment. Um, is it something where they can participate and then have some access to, yep, we did this, we did that, we found this, we found that?
Yeah, totally. And that's one of the sort of frontiers for Grip going forward here is we've got some things coming out soon here in the next few weeks to enable that third party trusted advisor to be able to contribute information. A lot of these operations are saying, look, I have this guy that comes once a week, or they check my irrigation, center pivots once a month, and I want to be able to see what they're doing so that I can remotely oversee and answer questions. And so we've had to be able to enable that capability. And part of it is a just distribution mechanism for us, because let's say it's a third party irrigation specialist, they're visiting center pivots for one farm. Well, they're going to the farm that's 40 acres away and doing the same thing. And so if they like it, now we're one click or two clicks away from the farm. And we're already seeing that in some of the pockets where we have high density of customers, particularly apple growers in Washington. They're all using the same mechanical contractors, electrical engineers to do packing lines and all that sort of stuff. So that was a necessity that customers saying, look, I need this because I want to see what's happening and memorize and memorialize those conversations.
Yeah, the reason I always ask about that is not only do I understand that when we're managing people, places, and things, and there's third party vendors, we want ways for them to interact. They also might need it themselves to manage all of their quote unquote job sites or clients where they're taking care of stuff. I've got a buddy out he's out in Maryland. His name's Brian Bieski, and he's got this company called Align Machine Company. And I might have talked to you about him before, where all he does is work on this heavy equipment, and his service company is known for doing the kind of work where there are no go backs. It's done right every time. But we've often talked, he and I, about it's important to track what's being done, for whom, why, what did it cost, so that you have that ability to pretty quickly look that up, share that with the client, or even have a system where they can participate so they have more visibility. It helps that relationship get even stronger because a vendor is saying, hey, I'm accountable. Hey, here's what we did. Hey, here's what we billed you. This is how long it took, stuff like that. And that goes a long, long way. So all of this just seems to connect all of it. What do you find right now? Because I think, it's not just one thing, but what's the most rewarding thing for you when you see one of your clients, like what kind of stuff are you hearing from them, or what's so rewarding for you that it just jumps out when it comes to them implementing and using Grip?
Yes, I think that some of the baseline stuff there are the financial metrics that have improved. But those are like table stakes, right? Because it's not necessarily an emotional, like, oh, we saved ourselves $1,200 for each one of our tender trucks because we didn't over maintain it. Great. Or we're now measuring our 5-pound apple bags to Walmart and Costco better, so millions of dollars aren't escaping the operation. Great, big win financially, perfect. But the emotional side of what you've done when you streamline the operation, you provide accountability and transparency to the owners so they can grow and scale, it is just so rewarding. I mean, one of the things we're doing here with the funding that we've gotten in recently is we're going to start taking some testimonial videos. And you'd be surprised the number of customers that raise their hand to say, yeah, I would, when can you be here? Like, I'm happy to talk about Grip, put me in front of the camera. Like, it's been so rewarding and transforming for just the way I work and freeing up my entire staff to do more productive work. And you hear those types of things, whether it's Spanish English translation, so you're no longer like chirping data to Google Translate back into text. Then you try to remember what conversation 2 weeks from now, and you're like, I'm done. I can't infinite scroll. So those little vignettes and nuggets of information go so far for us.
Yeah. And speaking of the funding, so I had a kind of question jotted down. You recently got a round of funding, and I think that's always an exciting time when you're way beyond proof of concept, you're way beyond a minimally viable product. You've got early adopters and some that are even a little bit further along than that, and you're getting these kinds of feedback. Are you Can you tell us anything about the funding round, like without giving away any secrets or anything like that, and what that's really going to do for not just you and Grip, but for your clients?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I think, part of the big, you hit on the head. Part of the big purpose for the raise was to build awareness for what we're doing. We're seeing value. We've got great engagement. We see a growing customer base. All that's great. A lot of it's been word of mouth and referrals. But you walk into a farm. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Western Nebraska, and I'm in a little community college, and I'm giving a presentation. And these farms have no idea that we exist because we're not. It would be different if we were competing with Salesforce or HubSpot. On the CRM side, it's like, okay, we're in a defined market.
Yeah.
We're competing in a market that really doesn't have analogs. And so half the battle is what I call winning hearts and minds. We just have to make people aware of what we're doing and that it exists. And maybe if they don't buy today, it's just a matter of when they buy, not if they buy. Because I firmly believe every farm in America needs something like this. Just there's not somebody solving those needs for them today. So when we think about how do we solve that, it's how do we work to build awareness through digital strategies, through earned media, doing podcasts and spreading the word like we're doing today, as well as work with the trusted advisors of the farm already. So there's been some research done to say, look, when farmers buy stuff, whether it's inputs or software or vehicles or tractors or whatever it is, the biggest source is a recommendation from somebody they trust, whether it's a neighbor, somebody in a peer group, somebody they're already buying something from. That weight goes so far. And so we're looking at who those best in breed, trusted advisors are, seeing what type of feedback they've heard from their customers on needing, equipment tracking and just better maintenance records, and then partnering with them to get us down to that soil, if you will. Because our costs are low, where I can't walk every farm and sell them directly. We'd never make any money there. So we have to just partner with a lot of folks to get that process in place. And that's a big part of the funding.
Well, I have a feeling there's a lot of people that want to do that. And so that funding kind of opens that lane for you to even do some creative things, maybe leverage some internal talent, because now you can afford to, pay the wage that they can dedicate their efforts towards, the social push and things like that. And this is part of the reason I wanted to do this is not because of the money, but because I love the idea of getting that awareness out there. It's not about selling software. It's about someone gets to know you. Someone gets to know that this exists. Somebody gets to kind of think about it when it's time to think about it. They're not being forced to do anything. We're not feature dumping and all this nonsense about, what it's going to do. We're keeping it super real. And I think that matters more than anything. It's probably my favorite thing about what you and I are doing right now is we're just chopping it up. We're not talking about a bunch of grandiose bullshit. We're not talking about buzzwords and, oh, does it have AI and all that? Because none of that matters. This is about the basic fundamentals of what somebody does, who it serves, who they serve, how you can serve them. And that's how everybody wins. I'm all about that, chasing down that elusive win-win. It's not easy to do. It's expensive. You have to be dedicated. And at the end of the day, you have to care.
Yeah.
And I like that stuff.
Yeah, totally. I
So
mean, I had a guy reach out from Kansas a couple of days ago. He heard me on a different podcast, and he's like, no way in hell did I think the CEO was going to call me. And we ended up having a 30-minute conversation. His nephew, farms 7 different farms. And, it was just that type of connection is something that, we're going to hold on dearly for as long as we can, forever, I hope. And it's because of that connection and hearing these things right from the farmer's mouth is so important for us to continue to make sure we're serving them.
yeah, and the most important thing about everything that you do, maybe it's not the most important, but I think it's a critical component, is that you're them. You've done it. You've done the work. You've been there. You've dealt with the struggles. You understand them, yet you still try to understand them. That right there is where we turn the corner. You're not making assumptions, but you're also looking to know more. What's going on at your farm? What are you struggling with? And you can actually talk that talk, even if they don't buy anything. And it It's all good stuff. I love that. So I want to switch you into what we call the fun question segment. And this is for, your first time being on CMMS radio. It's just a little bit of fun for people to kind of get to know you. There's no wrong answers. So I'm just going to fire these off at you, and then we'll get you back to business. Sound good?
Sounds great, man. Let's do it.
All right. First fun question is, what is your favorite music?
Bluegrass.
Nice. I like that. That's a good one. Second fun question, what is your favorite sport or hobby? And on sport, it does not have to be one that you play. It can be one that you like to kind of root for, cheer for, or follow.
My favorite hobby is woodworking. So one of the things I'm doing on my house up next is making my own cabinets. So I'm just in the details there. I love it. You got to be detailed. You got to love it. It takes time, but it's so rewarding.
Do you have a shop set up where you have table router and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I even went so far as we've got a sawmill. So I own a bunch of timber. So I've got some maple drying in my basement right now, and that's going to be used to make the cabinetry that I'll be embarking on next.
Outstanding, man. We could do a whole podcast on that someday, man, because that's fun stuff, man. It reminds me of my youth. All right, here's the big one. The third question in the fun question segment. What is your philosophy, opinion, approach, anything at all when it comes to this concept of work-life balance?
Great question. My philosophy is, what does it take to find the work that you're passionate about where it doesn't feel like work? I know that's so cliche, and it's very easy to say, but I've been, an entrepreneur for a long time, and I work a ton of hours, but I was up till 3:00 last night getting my board deck ready for next week. It didn't feel like work. I just was in the details. I was loving it. Just that grind is, agonizing for a lot, but not for me. And if you can find that, then the days go quick. You're mentally engaged. You want to be able to physically, keep yourself fit so you can go through those trenches. And it's just such a rewarding thing to find.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. Well, first of all, man, this has been a blast, and I just want to let folks know about you guys before we close out here. So everybody, there you have it. I want you to check out Gripp. It's the ultimate platform for connecting operations teams, managing equipment, and organizing operational knowledge. They are here to support the digitization and scaling of agricultural operations, providing the platform and service you need to succeed. So visit gripp.ag, that's GRIPP.ag, and report back to us here on CMMS Radio, because we want to hear about your successes, how that's going, how well they took care of you. And that's just kind of why we're here, a forum for people to get to know who you should be talking to, who you should be working with that actually cares about solving your problems. Tracy, thanks for being here with me on CMMS Radio.
Love it, man. I super enjoyed this. Let's do it again.
Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.